Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Pastor T, and we're here to talk to emerging entrepreneurs, community leaders, and the Christian community. So we hope that you're going to enjoy the show. We have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Dionna Appling, and welcome to the show, Dionna.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So here we talk about emerging entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders. And I would say she's kind of like all three wrapped up into one, right? Because she's an emerging and existing entrepreneur,
Yes.
Totally a community leader, right? And then a small business owner.
Yes.
So tell my guests a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, as Teresa mentioned, my name is Dionna Appling. I am the owner and coach as well of Business Advocates Pro, where I basically help small business owners and managers transform toxic and dysfunctional company culture. So that's done through leadership coaching as well as staff training and really just helping them create a strategy to implement in their workplace so that their team is coming to work because they want to and not just because they have to.
That's cool, Binks. So before we get into your business and what you do and how you can help people with these toxic environments that are happening, tell me a little bit about you. So how did you get started? I know that you're a fellow Bryan and Stratton alumni.
Yes.
Bryan and Stratton.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about you, how you got started, a little bit about your background, how you grew up, all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I always like to say when talking about the background and things like that, I was one of those little girls playing business, as we called it, in my grandmother's house with my cousin, and I was always the boss or the manager. And in doing that, we turned her dining room into our conference room, and we had the end tables in the living room, and that was our offices. But I always knew that I wanted to be in business, but obviously as a kid you don't know what that really entails or what's that about. But I've been very blessed as far as my experience and the opportunities that I've had. I've been able to, my first job was actually, not traditionally how most teenagers are at a restaurant, fast food restaurant or a store.
Right.
But I had the opportunity to actually work in a business setting in an office. So I had really early exposure as to what would go on in a workplace, but something kind of weird happened because while I was there, and although I was a teenager, I've learned a lot about professionalism from watching my mother. She's very strong in work ethic and integrable, and I always knew how it was to carry yourself as a professional. But I started noticing that when I was in the workforce, that I would work for companies where the expectation of my performance was here, but I wasn't given the tools necessary to reach those expectations. I wasn't provided training opportunities and things like that. And then I think all of us have had that experience where you run into the dreadful boss, the bad boss that you work for. So I really just started to realize, hey, this doesn't seem right. So, I'm very ambitious and I want to work, and, I'm eager to learn things. So I kept going in my career. I had different positions and things like that, working for great companies. But it was still that same thing missing.
Something.
It was something missing. And I started to realize, well, something's wrong. Why aren't we being led the right way? Or it's management, and trying to really figure out what's going on. And of course, you think you have all the answers. And so I had developed that attitude where, when I am able to get promoted to a management role, I'm going to be able to impact so much change. Until I got my first leadership role. And when I got when I got my first leadership role, it was like, you think you're going to impact all of this change, but if you aren't equipped to do so, it's impossible.
It's impossible. Let's pause right there because I want to go back and say some things and talk about some things that you talked about. So you talked about as a kid, growing up, playing business and being in the boardroom and having fun with your family and your friends. And I think that's where it all starts. I think that, as entrepreneurs, to me, entrepreneur is like a new term, because when I grew up, we was hustlers. My mother was a hustler. My grandmother was a hustler. Yes. We was all hustlers, right? Yes. And so in growing up, when you see that a child has a gift, it's very important to cultivate that gift, right? To feed them whatever it is. So like you, I grew up doing the baby dolls' hair. Yeah. So I cut all of their hair and did whatever I could do to the baby doll's hair, I did it. Yes. And then I started babysitting. And so when I was babysitting, then the kids became my baby dolls, right? And I was doing their hair. And then I remember, like I said, I'm glad my mother cultivated that entrepreneur inside of me. So when you would come to pick up your kid, let's say if it was $10 for me to babysit, and then she was like, you would get ready to pay me $10. My mother like, you owe her $15 because she did her hair too, you know. So it was like, and that was like at 8 years old, right? You know, so it was already in me. I knew that the beauty industry was something that I wanted to do. So some innate, that still small voice on the inside knew when you were a kid that this is what I want to do.
Absolutely. And I will say one key piece that I didn't mention, and you reminded me actually, as far as that being, when you recognize that gift that a child has, I will say that I'm blessed to have a mother and a family and a grandmother at the time who saw what my interests were and what my capabilities were. Because what tended to happen is I would go to church, and I'm like 6th, 7th grade, and even in my high school years, I'm the youngest person in the leadership classes at my church doing the leadership training. And again, God, I always say he has the best sense of humor, because he literally trained me from a kid all the way through my adult years to be aware of what leadership was about. So I had the awesome opportunity where, you know, I could have easily been sleeping in on a Sunday, but we would go to church an hour or two earlier to participate in leadership training. So I had that exposure to understand what leadership was in ministry. And that's, you know, again, from my mother and women in my family and my grandmother being able to see that and help cultivate that in my life.
That's amazing. So you said your mother showed you an example. What kind of work was your mother doing at that time?
My mother worked in pharmacy, and she did that for several years. So it's interesting because, you know, when I shared the story of how I knew I wanted to be in business, right? My mom didn't necessarily work for a place where she wore, you know, a suit or, you know, things like that. She wore pharmacy lab clothes. Okay. However, my mother's work ethic, and even to this day, I would say is unmatched. And I learned that directly from her. My mother was always timely. She was punctual. She rarely ever called off. And even with being a single mother, she still made sure that she took care of her responsibilities, and anyone who would speak of her spoke of her with prestige and integrity. And I saw that growing up. So when I did get into the workforce, you know, my mother, of course, she's like, you're 16 years old, you need to go get a job. And I wanted to work, so that wasn't an issue. But again, God's sense of humor. I went on interviews at different stores in the mall. You know, I went to all the fast food places, the grocery stores. I aced the interview. My mother taught me how to interview, but I couldn't get those jobs. And the job that I got, ironically, was in a business office, in a medical practice. So just being under her and seeing that really helped shape me into how you should behave and interact in a workplace.
Well, that's amazing. And like I said, it's so important to cultivate the gifts in children when you see them. And it's never too early. It's never too early. When you see that a child has a gift, it's never too early to introduce them to entrepreneurship, to introduce them to what it is that they have a passion for. Because if you have a passion for that thing, you're more likely to do that thing and to do it with excellence. Excellence. Okay, you done went through high school, you done went through the leadership classes at church. Now you're about to go to school. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So, you know, throughout the journey of realizing, oh, well, when I become a manager or when I become a leader, I'm going to make all of this change. And then I started to realize, you don't know about leadership. It's not as easy as it seemed. And then I started to become that dreadful boss or that dreadful leader that I was trying so hard to get away from. And if I'm being honest, that I judged prematurely because I wasn't walking in that role. And there are big shoes to fill to lead a team or to lead anyone. So at that time, I actually I was at Bryan and Stratton. I got my associates and my bachelor's in business from there. But when I started to get serious, and I would say had different work experiences, I would get these great jobs and still see the same dynamic in the workplace. It didn't matter how known the company was. It didn't matter how many bosses or directors or any of that was. There were still key things missing, and high turnover, and just a dreadful work environment to be in, and no room for development or growth and training as an employee who wants to do those things.
Right.
So I started to really just try to figure out, well, what do I want to do? Why am I experiencing this? And then it was just like, well, you don't have to stop going to school. So I pretty much engulfed myself in learning about management science, understanding what leadership was. And I went on to Indiana Wesleyan University, and I achieved my master's degree in that, because it was basically like a fire in me. Like, I want to know the ins and outs of this, so that in these types of roles, I can help people be the best version of themselves. And then it turned into, well, why isn't that your business? And it was just in me. And again, God had his sense of humor. And I engulfed myself in training, and even outside of schooling, get my master's degree. I would do coaching programs. I got certifications in various different things, project management, various levels, because it was important to me to understand the ins and outs of how to lead people and how to cultivate a work environment and a culture where people are there because they want to be, and they're given what they need to excel at their jobs and do it well.
And that's so important, because if people are there because they want to be, you come with a whole different mindset, right? You come with a whole different set of baggage. We all got some baggage. We coming in, bag lady, you gonna miss your bus. But we all come in with this, but when we come in with it, the bags are not holding us down.
That's right.
We're there, and we want to be there, and we're excited about being there.
Absolutely.
And then we're contributing in a way that's meaningful, not just for myself, but meaningful for everybody, all parties involved. So before we get into the dynamics of your business, I want you to talk about, you talked about training, and getting extra training. I see that you're Six Sigma certified.
Yes.
So talk about that. Girl, talk about Six Sigma.
So the idea for me, when I decided to do Lean Six Sigma training, I was working for a company, and I did a lot with project management. And I started realizing, as I started really working in my own business, that I'm managing projects. So I didn't wait for the company that I was working for to offer that opportunity to me to learn project management in an efficient way and understand what waste is in a workplace, or a work process, I should say. And I just decided, actually, I remember when I did it, I had some vacation time at the end of the year, and I was just, sitting around binging on Netflix, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, focus on being Lean Six Sigma certified. And so I went ahead and I signed up. I did the classes. I did the training. And what I love about Lean Six Sigma, and what I honestly encourage any professional or manager, small business owner to focus on with that, there's an acronym that is provided in Lean Six Sigma. It's called DMAIC, and it's a way or a method of how you look at process workflows and determining if it's productive, efficient, or if it's wasteful. And so you define, you measure, you analyze, you improve, and then wait, am I spelling it right? You define, you measure, you analyze, and then am I saying that right?
DMAIA.
You define, you measure, you analyze,
and evaluate.
Improve, and then you correct. Sorry about that. I wanted to make sure I got everything correct. And to me, when I took that methodology and I really just applied it into every area of work that I did. So whether that was working with a company or working with a team or even working at a full-time job.
Right.
Everything that I'm doing in order to improve that process and improve that performance that I'm producing or that someone else is producing, you focus on defining what it is that you're looking for. You measure that outcome, you analyze it, you improve it, and you correct that method. So
Awesome, awesome. When I seen that, I was like, oh, I went to Bryan and Stratton as well. Got my bachelor's there, and we learned about Lean Six Sigma, and I thought that was just so awesome. And I kept on saying, I want to do Lean Six Sigma, but I don't want to pay for it. So if anybody out there got some Lean Six Sigma training that we can get involved in, that will sponsor me, I will be an excellent student. I'll be an excellent student. So I love the fact that you took the initiative, and so let's think about this, ladies and gentlemen who are watching. Whatever it is that you're doing it's always more training.
Yes.
So some training comes with $1.
Yes.
Some training comes with the time. So you got to pay something. You got to pay either way.
Absolutely.
My grandmother used to say, you're going to pay cash or you're going to pay attention. Either way you're going to pay. Either way you're going to pay.
Absolutely.
So in paying attention now in the information age that we live in, and with all these YouTube videos and YouTube training, it's just a matter of paying the time to get what you need, right?
Absolutely.
But then sometimes you have to pay cash because you got to get it polished to the point where it's applicable to what you're doing. Yeah. So kudos to you to taking the time out, not just to go to school and get a degree, but also get that extra certification to make you even that much more qualified, to make you that much more marketable, to make your paycheck that much more bigger. Is bigger a word? Bigger. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about, so the whole premise of your business is taking company cultures and business strategies to help businesses grow and eliminate a toxic environment.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So like I said, the biggest thing for me is helping small business owners and managers, people who have direct reports in the workplace, to cultivate a company culture where people are coming to work because they want to and not because they have to. So I understand that there's some fluff around, or people consider fluff, and somewhat of a buzzword type of perspective when it comes to company culture and how to focus on that. And it's just something that people talk about, or it's not really important. It doesn't have any real benefits or ROI. And there are numbers, there is data that supports the benefit and the great investment that you have with focusing on company culture. So to start from the beginning, what is company culture? Some people could perceive it as a program. It's when the employees wear jeans every Friday. It's when we go and we have
dress down.
Exactly.
Friday. It's company culture.
Right.
So before you go into that, I always like to make things clear because everybody is watching is not business savvy and certified. So you said ROI. So when you talk about ROI, that's the return on your investment.
Absolutely.
So what does that mean as it relates to a return?
There are numbers that support why business owners and managers need to focus on making company culture a priority. And it's been shown and proven that companies that focus on employee engagement and increasing the positivity in their company culture, they have been shown to increase customer satisfaction by 40%. They have been shown to increase employee engagement by 40% and profits by 35%. So first of all, those are great numbers. Those are great percentages of increase for any business. But I like to break those three things down a little bit. 40% of customer satisfaction is improved. 40% of employee engagement is improved, and 35% of profit.
All right.
If you look at that, the biggest increase in focusing on culture is not about the profit. It's not focusing on the profit, but the people. The customers, the employees are the people. So when you make that the priority, and how you are looking at your work environment, how things are being handled, what behaviors are considered appropriate, and what is toxic, and removing that toxicity.
Right.
When you focus on the people aspect, the profits follow. So I always encourage business owners and managers to set the equation of focusing on people first, then purpose, then the product or whatever it is that you're selling or offering to people, and then the profits. The people come first.
So you said people first.
People first.
Then the products.
The purpose.
The purpose.
Yes. People first.
People first, then the purpose. Then
product.
And then
the
profit is last.
Yes.
Okay. So with that equation, we're talking about focusing on the people.
Yes.
So when you talk about focusing on the people with the company culture, and I'm looking at your DMAIC, you making it measurable with the third. I'm paying attention. So with the DMAIC, so when you're focusing on the people, what are some of the tips or tricks. I hate to use that, but that's what they call it, tips and tricks. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can give the employer or the small business owner to help them to focus on the people?
Absolutely. Make employee engagement a priority. I can't stress that enough. And again, that's one of those things that a lot of people seem to believe is just, we don't really have to worry about it, or it's a program. Employee engagement is not an HR responsibility. Your human resources department or person is not responsible for employee engagement. The direct report, that manager, that leader, that small business owner is. Why? Because employee engagement is a relationship. I always like to compare it to a marriage. In any marriage, you're in a partnership. It's a relationship. So you have to make time and make it intentional to understand what your counterpart, your partner, needs to be able to go about their day well, to be well in this relationship. It's no different with a manager and their staff. You have to make it a priority to understand what motivates each of your team members. You have to make it a priority to understand that their motivators will be different. Some people are motivated intrinsically, some are extrinsic, and meaning that some people are motivated by affirmations, words of recognition, things like that, maybe getting a reward, while others may be more rewarded by or feel motivated when they are given bonuses.
Now, is that just too much time? I mean, do I have to be like, I work with them, this is not, this is work, right? When I go to work, I'm here to do a job. So you mean I got to pay attention to the people that I work with, and I got to, make mental notes about what they telling me, and I got to actually engage with them on a level that's meaningful and means that. Can't I just go to work and tell them what to do and let them do it and we all go home?
You could, but you won't have a team of engaged people, meaning you won't have people who are coming to work, showing up every day, doing their best work with the vision of the company in mind, with understanding what I like to call contribution meaning understanding what their responsibilities and the work that they produce, how it contributes to the bigger picture, i.e. your customer, your patient, whoever your end consumer is. So yes, we can absolutely go into the workplace and not focus on connecting with the people who report to us, but we also shouldn't be surprised when they're not showing up, or more importantly, when turnover starts to increase.
I was just gonna say that.
Because they're gonna leave.
And that's the bottom line. It's like, if I don't feel like I have a relationship with the people at work, or me being a manager with my, staff, then it's easier for them to leave.
Absolutely.
It's like one girl was about to quit, and she sent me a text and asking me could she quit, and I'm like, girl, you gotta do what you gotta do. You're not out of your business. But that really spoke to my heart, because that means that she cared enough. Yes. She valued my opinion enough to ask me, was it okay, before she moved on. Yes. And she was like, I want to give you time to look for another employee and put it out there even before I give my 2 weeks notice, so that you can be okay. Absolutely. And that won't happen if we don't have an employee engagement.
Oh no. I mean, statistics show, Gallup reported that in the U.S., now mind you, this is not the world, this is in another country, in the United States where we live, there are only 35% of employees who are actively engaged in their work. That means those are the employees who are showing up every day, doing their best, committed to giving quality, and committed to their customer, their end user, and being of service. That means that over 60% of U.S. employees are actively disengaged. And what does that mean? That means that they're only coming to work just because they've already checked out, meaning that they're just going through the motions, and they're literally just doing enough just to get by. And those same employees also admitted in that same survey that was done that they don't see themselves being employed at that same company within a year.
Wow.
So that just proves the amount of turnover. And if you take those percentages alone and you apply them to your specific workplace, that means over half of your people are likely disengaged. All because the manager feels that all they have to do is come to work and bark the orders, and everybody should just oblige.
Yeah, that's so true. When you said that statement, it reminded me My mother used to say people come to work and do just enough to keep from getting fired.
Yes.
And the companies pay them just enough to keep them from quitting.
That's right.
So it's on both ends. It's just enough.
Exactly.
I'm not giving any ups and extras, and you're not getting any ups and extras.
Exactly.
So that
and just imagine how that looks to the customer, the end user, the people who are supposed to be served by this business and product and service. They're not getting the quality service that they should be getting, because there are disengaged people working there, and disengaged employees tend to be a result of a poor or toxic and dysfunctional company culture.
That is so true. And we all been there. We all been to the grocery store where what you want. You know, we've all been to the place where they're not really trying to help you.
Absolutely.
Or they're helping you with an attitude.
Absolutely.
So we've all been there. So what makes why? So we already kind of went over why does the company culture matter. So
Yes.
it matters because if you want to have these people purpose, products, and then your profit.
Yes.
So your purpose is why are you in the business?
Yes.
So with the purpose, that's like a two-way street, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. With purpose, it's very key for every small business owner or every manager to understand what is the vision here. Why are we doing this? Because it can't just be about the money.
Right.
Because money will come and money will go. Money isn't going to keep good employees in the door. And money isn't going to keep customers coming. Okay. So you have to have a vision, and you most importantly have to have a shared vision. And what a shared vision is just not a manager or a business owner saying, this is what I want to happen. This is how I foresee it happening. Everybody get in line. People will naturally, especially adults, they don't like to be told what to do. So they're going to naturally resist to change. They're going to resist that.
Right.
So what you want to do is create a shared vision, meaning get very clear on why you're doing the work you're doing, why this company exists, who it is that you're trying to serve. That's really what it's about. Who are you serving? Because you're serving your customer, but you're also serving your employees. What do you want them to get out of the experience of working with you and for your company? And when you're clear on that, you're able to gain buy-in from your team, from all of your employees, so that they feel like they have, again, that contribution, meaning me working here solves this problem.
Right.
Me working here serves this person. And I mean, let's just face it, and we're talking about the word and what the Lord says about leadership, you know, in Mark 10:45. He clearly says that the Son of God was sent here not to be served, but to serve.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
so that's the ultimate level of servant leadership. And I believe that if we all just shift our perspectives into focusing on the people and the purpose of them being a part of our vision, and really create actionable, meaningful steps so they know what their work has meaning towards, then they'll start to really see and cultivate a better company culture.
Yeah, that's good, because just knowing the whole servant leadership piece. So when you think about servant leader, I think in the past, most people was top-down management. You know, just top-down. And the whole concept of bottom-up management just never had even got on the radar. But I believe that we as the body of Christ, we as Christian networking entrepreneurs, we need to go to what the word says and bring a whole new perspective to the workplace, knowing that if you are in the workplace, that's your marketplace ministry.
It sure is.
So as you're doing your marketplace ministries, know that you don't have to come in with your Bible hitting people over the head and speaking in tongues and anointing them with oil at work. If you got to do that, you got to do that.
Right.
But it's all about living out the biblical principles.
Absolutely.
It's all about biblical. So if you're living out the biblical principles, you probably won't have a toxic environment.
Absolutely. Because if you're living out the principles and you're focusing on servant leadership, let's just first of all look at what leadership is. And I think a lot of people mistake leadership for just this negative view of power. And the biggest thing that you have to understand about leadership is that leadership is about influence. And that crosses when it comes down to management, because management, you're managing a process, but you have to lead people. And in doing that, it's very, very, very important to understand that your power The authority that you have to influence people means much more and is more effective when you focus on influence rather than trying to enforce. When you get people to buy into your vision, when you get people excited and wanting to be a part of something bigger than themselves, they will show up. They will show up. That doesn't discount accountability. That doesn't mean that you don't have to correct things as necessary. That's what leadership is about. But enforcing people to do something is only going to create more resistance. So you want to bring them on board. Let them buy into the vision. Create that shared vision and influence them to do better than you, but as you lead them, you should be modeling what you want them to display. You can't have expectations for your team that you don't hold yourself to. It just doesn't work that way. They'll call you out on it.
That is so true. And then the whole modeling piece, right? So I like that you made a distinction between management and leadership.
Yes.
Because it's a big difference.
Huge.
Just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you're a leader.
Absolutely.
And I'm with you on that. Leaders lead people.
Yes.
Leaders influence people to do what is right. That's why I want to come from that.
No,
Because you
it
can
is.
influence people to do what's wrong too.
Absolutely.
But that's what leaders do. And then managers manage processes and procedures.
Yes.
So just because you're a good manager doesn't make you a good leader.
Absolutely.
Speak to that.
It doesn't. I mean, you just summarized it right there. It doesn't. Managers manage processes. So you're given a set of expectations as a manager. You have to focus on reporting. You have to make sure, numbers are well, and depending on what type of role that you have, forecast, and whatever it is that you do, you have to make sure that the workflow is operating correctly. You have to make sure that you're reaching the goals that have been set from you by upper level management. But as a leader, it almost seems like they contradict. They don't have to, but they in some ways do if you only go into working with people with management personality. You can't put a round peg into a square hole. You just can't do it. And when it's important, I like to encourage managers to just make sure that identify who you are as a leader, or the lack thereof, meaning the lack of leadership skills that you may have. You pay attention to how people respond to you, and more importantly, pay attention to how you speak to them. How are you interacting with people on a daily basis? Are you just constantly accusing? Are you just constantly monitoring the process or the output? Those are great. You need to manage output, but that engagement piece, because employee engagement is a relationship, it's not a program. That's not going to come until you recognize and make a priority to keep your team engaged. And the only way to do that is to lead them. Be a servant leader. Understand what their needs are to do their job well. Understand what concerns and challenges they're having in the workplace, and make it easier for them. Try to reduce those frustrations, because the more you tend to them, the more they're going to put quality work into their workday, the more they're going to produce quality.
That's so true. And then knowing that, as you're dealing with people, leaders and managers need to know themselves.
Absolutely.
So you have to know who you are and get what you need.
Yes.
So you can show up proper.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, in my opinion, self-awareness is important for any person to have. No matter what you do, you have to be aware of who you are and how you show up in this world as yourself. No one should be able to tell you something about you that you haven't recognized for yourself. But more important than self-awareness, you have to be able to control. There has to be a level of self-control there as well. So as a leader, I have to be aware of the type of leader that I am. Am I more of a visionary? Am I more structured? Am I more empathetic as a leader? Those characteristics that I have and how I interact with my team are going to affect the way they respond to me. It's going to affect how the output is done, how the work is being produced. If I'm too focused on the vision, perhaps that also may cause me to not make decisions or be as focused on quality of work, because I'm looking at the bigger picture rather than every intricate step that it takes to get to that bigger picture. that doesn't mean that being a more of a visionary leader is wrong. It just means that I have to be aware of how I'm showing up as a leader and how I can better serve my people and not be so focused on one versus the other, but make it work in harmony.
And that's so true, because when you have self-awareness, when you're aware of yourself, your strong points, your weaknesses, your areas of opportunity, then that way when you bring a team together, you know where the gaps are, right?
Absolutely.
So if I'm this focused and I got this, I need to bring somebody in who is strong in those areas where I'm not strong. So when I bring somebody in, then that makes a complete picture. We got a whole pie, the body, like it's like the body of Christ. Every joint supplies and every need, and that is so important. But the whole servant leadership piece, that's where we need to be. And understand that we are servants and we lead as well, and that's so important. So let's talk about those toxic environments in a company culture. What might they look like?
Oh, it's several things, but I would say the more common signs of a toxic company culture is, number one, high turnover. If you can't keep people in your workplace and on your team for a significant period of time, I would say 3 to 5 years minimum, and it's a constant revolving door, it's 9 times out of 10 because of a toxic culture. And I would also like to piggyback on that and say that majority of the time, the source of a toxic company culture.
All right, now let's get ready. Put your seatbelt on. I feel like we coming for a landing, okay?
A lot of times, and this may, sound bad, but it's true. A lot of times the source of a toxic company culture is a bad boss. Because that's also the reason why people leave. I've done specific surveys on that and polls on that, and I've also read them, and all you have to do is just look it up. There are statistics shown that that employees don't leave companies because they want more money. Yes, that's a perk. They don't leave companies because they just want something better. Yes, that may be true, but the primary reason they leave is because of a bad boss. And a bad boss is essentially just a poor leader. So poor leadership would be the next reason why a company is toxic. You can have several managers, but if they're not equipped to lead people and to understand how important engagement is and how to engage with people, that contributes to toxicity in that work environment and for those people. Other signs of a toxic company culture would be just dysfunction in how people work together. Because essentially what company culture is, it's the unwritten norms. What is normal in a company culture? What is normal in this workplace that technically may not have been said or written down on a plaque or given to you on your first day in the handbook? It's the way we operate, the way we work with each other, the way we interact with each other. Is it common for people to just argue just because? Is it common for people to complain more than they, in a sense, compliment in the workplace? Is it common for a boss or someone in leadership to berate an employee in front of others? That's an unwritten norm. That sends the message that this is okay. This is just how we do things. And that doesn't make it right. It's actually dysfunctional and it's toxic. And I would also say that another sign of toxic company culture would be the focus on production and profit instead of the people and the purpose. And don't get me wrong, I understand we're in business. I understand that money has to be made. I understand that we have to produce products and services and things of that nature. But when you operate from a management or leadership level, and as a small business owner, when you operate with that as your priority first, you are essentially creating a workspace where people are the last on the totem pole. And if you're not focusing on how they can do their job better so that the product can be produced correctly, so that profit can be made because customers are being served correctly, you're creating toxicity in that culture without knowing it. Because in your mind, you're thinking, we have to make money, but the people come before the money. You need the people to make the money. Put the focus on them so that everything else can fall in play. And we've talked about the stats on that. We've talked about the percentage of how it works when you focus on culture and people first.
So it's so important to focus on people, because when you say ROI, the first thought is a return on an investment. And then when you say ROI, you think about money, right? But then there's a ROI as it relates to the investment in people as well. So for your return on your investment and taking this time time to take the time to spend the time to do what it takes to invest in the people, the return will be even that much greater.
Absolutely. Because we don't just invest monetarily. We invest time every day. And your team essentially is spending 40 or more hours a week in your office, in your workspace. That's in a year's time frame, that's more than half of a year. So think about that investment that they're putting into working with you. So if you take the time to invest in them as a person, meaning understanding what they need to do their job well, invest in their professional development, giving them what they need to do their job well, giving them the resources, helping them develop those skill sets so that they can actually grow in their role. When you focus on them, that is going to surpass your expectations for production and output and then profits. And more importantly, I want to make it clear that when you focus on people, that's not just the employee, but it's also the customer. Which already, it rings back to service. When we focus on service and leading with the service mindset and making sure that any path we can clear for our employees and our customers is done, that return is going to be tenfold.
It is. And when you think about customers, you say, to me, your employees are your customers,
First customer.
Because you have your internal customers, which is your employees. And then you have your external customers, which is the guests that your employees serve if you're in a service industry, right? Even in retail, so you have your internal customers and your external customers, and it would behoove you to take the time to give them what they need. But I hear you out there talking. I already hear you. It's like, I'm gonna invest this money in these people, and then the next thing I know, they gonna leave. I'm gonna give them this training. I'm gonna give them everything that they need, and then the next thing you know, they gone, and then I'm stuck, and I gotta start all over again.
Yes, that is typically what the response is. But I would say this: number one, like I already mentioned, and that has already been proven study-wise and survey-wise, people don't leave a job for more money. They leave a job because they had a bad boss. The more you can focus on yourself as a leader and how you're leading that person, how you're serving that person and developing them, is going to benefit your company. Now, does that mean that that's going to guarantee that they'll stay for 20 years? No, it doesn't. But in life, nothing is permanent.
Nothing is guaranteed. Everything changes.
Everything changes. But wouldn't you want to know that the people who've worked with you and for you have been equipped with everything that they need to do their job well, and that they're going to carry out those skills elsewhere? That's the impact of a leader. Leader creates more leaders, not followers. Because essentially, if you're only creating people who or working with people where I like to call them fetchers, where you just want to tell them what to do and then they do it, and they don't have any sense of initiative to make decisions as you would, you haven't done a great job as a leader. Your team should be able to operate, make decisions just as you would whether you're in their presence or not.
Out of their presence. That is so true. So you call them fetchers?
Fetchers.
Fetchers, okay. And I call them yes ma'ams. I don't want all these yes ma'ams. I need you to be able to think. I need you to be able to make a decision. I need you to be able to think things through and just know what's next. And then I know now, like a lot of companies, whether it's personal development or education, they're having employees sign some kind of agreement, right? So that's a thought, if I send you to this training and you go to this training, then you're signing an agreement that you're going to stay here for at least the next year. And then that way you're getting a return on your investment, but you're working with a better quality person.
Absolutely.
So that's going to help all the way around. So what happened when companies don't make company culture a priority, or if companies just kind of stay in that vein, we toxic, we know we toxic, this where we live?
You're going to experience more employee turnover, meaning you're going to get that revolving door. You can't get people to stay in your company, but more importantly, you can't get the right people to stay there, because the right person, no matter whether or not their skill set meets the job criteria, if they don't feel like they're engaged while working there and the culture is toxic, they're not going to stay. So you're going to see that, and essentially, I think a lot of people have to adjust their perspective about that. It's like, okay, well, quick to hire and quick to fire, and it's like, no, that's not okay. You want to get the right people, but that costs you more. It costs much more to keep bringing more people in than it is to just do right by the people that you have and develop them.
Yeah, so the development is very important.
Yes.
So the last question about the whole company culture piece is, what is needed to build or rebuild a company culture?
Absolutely. As we've kind of alluded to and specified more than once, it's about the people and it's about the purpose. I would suggest any small business owner, number one, when you're hiring people, hire for purpose and not production. I know that I need people to produce. I need this to get done. We have a large project, whatever the case is, I understand that. However, you want to bring people on board who genuinely want to be there. And in order for you to ensure that, you have to be clear on what the purpose and the vision is of your company. So I would encourage small business owners and those who are experiencing toxicity in their company culture and you want to rebuild it, or you realize that now I need to start paying more attention to it. Number one, look at the leadership. You have to pay attention to leadership, because who's leading in your organization is who's going to drive that culture and drive the engagement levels with your team. So check your leadership, including yourself.
That's so
Understand
true.
what type of leader that you are. And in addition to that, understand that you need to invest in good leadership. Ensure that the people who are managing others in your workplace are well equipped to be leaders and not just managers. And then from there, I would say focus on the purpose. What are we working towards? Well, who are we serving? Why are we doing this? Get crystal clear on this. Make sure your leadership team is crystal clear on this, because when you have clarity on why you're doing this work, you can drive the other pieces accordingly. And then the people.
Yes.
Understand who you're working with. Understand why they're working with you. Get to know them. Stop making employee engagement complicated. It's not complicated, and it's not one person's responsibility. It's just relationship building. And you can very well still maintain a level of professionalism in the relationship that you have with your team without being overly friendly. It's just about getting to know them so that you can better serve them, so they can better serve your customers and produce greater output.
That's awesome. And that's cool that you said that. It's like, because it's one thing to be friendly, it's another thing to be their friend. You know, like I said, I'm not your friend.
Yes.
I'm friendly, but I'm not your friend. I got friends outside here.
Absolutely.
I got friends that I've known for 20 years and I barely get a chance to talk to them. So that's not the case. But when you talk about the people, I thought about, like, for the service industry that I'm in, a lot of times I hire people based on their personality and their attitude. Because if I'm looking for, in our industry, the beauty industry, you have to have the right personality and you have the right attitude. It doesn't matter your skill set, because you can be the coldest hairstylist, the coldest colorist, the baddest makeup artist, all of that. But if your personality sucks and your attitude is bad, then people don't even want to be in your presence, right? So that's so important. And then you talked about the vision of the company. So a lot of times when I'm talking employees or potential team members, I let them know what the vision of corporate is. I let them know what my personal vision is. And then I ask them, what is their vision? And then the key is, do all three visions line up?
Absolutely. That's important. And I love the fact that you have your own vision as a leader. I encourage every person in leadership, if you have direct reports, have your own personal leadership goals and leadership vision, because that's what's going to help you make sure that you have the right people in place and that you're tending to your team the right way. And when it comes to your team, you have to be clear on why they're there. Why are you here? What makes you want to be here? Again, and connect the contribution meaning. How is it that the work that you're doing while working here serves the vision, serves the people, and serves yours? And when all three are in sync, it's almost impossible to have a toxic company culture.
Yeah, that's cool. But you know what? I didn't always have a leadership vision. So approximately about 2 months ago, I was in a program with this young lady, and she's totally dynamic. Her name is Dionna, okay? So
I've heard of her.
So we went through this whole coaching process. So I went through your coaching process. And through your coaching process, you helped me to see a lot of things as it relates to the company company culture to toxicity and all of that stuff. You helped me to create the whole leadership vision for my team, and then work with them. So at this point, I think this is a good time for us to do a call to action. What we want y'all to do. So tell them about your company, what it is you do, how they can connect with you, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I hope small business owners and managers transform toxic and dysfunctional company culture. And we do that by focusing on the three things that I just named: the leadership, the employee engagement, and the vision, the service. And so essentially I work with those who are leading teams and help them create their leadership vision or identify what that is, but more specifically, make it actionable. Because it's one we can all, I'm sure we've gone to businesses or companies or even worked for some where the vision is on the website or it's listed on a plaque somewhere. No one knows what it is because it's just a bunch of words. So essentially what I do is I help people get clear on what it is that they want to see happening in their company, and aligning the leadership team with the employee team to be able to merge the two together. And one of the key things that is done to do that is an employee experience feedback assessment. And that really gets clear on what your employees are looking for, what they are experiencing and witnessing as their experience there as an employee versus what leadership and management sees. And majority of the time, they are drastically different. So I help create alignment and actionable steps and practices to increase leadership awareness and servant leadership capabilities, as well as employee engagement.
Yeah, so that was amazing. So when we worked together, we did a survey and we sent it to my staff, and they filled out the survey, and we came back and assessed the assessment from the employees. And what was a good thing for me, we wanted just more team. We wanted to have more camaraderie in the salon and stuff, and we all wanted the same thing.
Yes, so that made it a lot easier. First of all, I think that speaks to the level of leadership awareness that you have of being able to lead in a way where you are that in tune with your team and what's going on with them, because there weren't any drastic discrepancies as to what you thought some of the concerns and challenges were versus what your team did.
Right.
And in other situations, there are extremely drastic differences, but doing that really just makes it all clear. Because again, when we talk about things like vision or employee needs and engagement, people think it's fluff. They think, oh, kumbaya session, we're going to just all get together and hold hands and act like nothing's wrong. And it's totally opposite from that. When you're clear on what's happening on both ends, you can create an action plan to be able to build on that. And that's what we were able to do together.
We were, and I'm so excited, and it's coming along really, really nicely. So that's the employee engagement planning packet.
Yes.
So what do you have for my viewers? What do you have? What do you have?
So as I mentioned about employee engagement, one of the struggles with leaders, and if you have teams, is employee engagement, because we have a lot on our plates. I get it. I understand. It's hard a lot of times to be intentional about connecting with your staff when you have to worry about meeting quotas and, making sure the results are there. So I created something that's called an employee engagement planning packet. And essentially what it is over 50 employee engagement activities, ideas, and gestures that you can do with your team individually, which I suggest, as well as collectively, which I also suggest. And in this packet, it really just takes the guesswork of you having to figure out, when do I engage with my employees? What do I do to boost engagement? And it has those activities and gestures and ideas. And then it also has planning templates. So it has an individual planning template where you are able to outline the goals and the conversations, the motivators and things of your team individually, each person, and use that in your planning efforts as time goes on to keep them engaged. And then there's also a calendar template in there where you can map out every month which days or how you're going to strategically make it an initiative to engage your employees, because it's easy to forget. And again, my example is the marriage. If you forget date nights because you're busy and your spouse is busy, it's like it can happen, but what's going to happen with that connection? It's going to dwindle, and then you're going to be distant, and that can breed resentment. It's no different in a workplace. So that packet helps you do that, and I'm offering 15% off to all of you viewers and listeners. All you have to do is use the code CNE15, and And you can do that by going to, there's a short link, which is bit.ly/EE planning packet. And that stands for Employee Engagement Planning Packet. And you can get 15% off.
And we will definitely put that in the body of the on Facebook and on YouTube and all of that stuff too. So that's wonderful, just from tuning in. Even if you're watching the replay, you can get 15% off the planning packet. And it's amazing. It just kind of helps you be aware and stay conscious of what you need to do to go in. You know, it's like when you were talking about this, I think about what is his name with the 5 love languages?
Gary Chapman.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think about the 5 love languages.
It's the same. It's the same. And he actually has a book about workplace appreciation too with employees.
Okay.
And he talks about the different love languages and from a leadership employee perspective. And I encourage any leader, if you have any direct reports, to read that book, because everybody's form of motivation is different. Once you're clear on that, you can just get so much further.
I love that, because you know, in his book, The 5 Love Languages, he talks about how if you're giving me love in a way that I don't really receive love, I'm not really getting filled up.
Exactly.
Right? But if you speak in my language and you giving me the love the way that I receive love, it's just my love tank is overflowing.
Absolutely.
Right? So when you were saying that, I was thinking about that, because for somebody, a word of affirmation is not somebody who is motivated by a bonus.
Absolutely.
So you can tell them how good they doing all day long and they not receiving that because they want to monetarily know how good you think I'm doing. Right?
It's so true.
And then somebody else, you know, wants words of encouragement and affirmation. Somebody wants you to pat them on the back, attaboy, attagirl. So yeah, that makes a difference. Give us all your contact information.
Sure. You can go to baproinc.com. That's baproinc.com. That's the website for more information on the services that I offer, as well as freebies that I offer. So if you are someone who's new to leadership, I have a new leader success toolkit that has a ton of different templates and a leadership style evaluation that you can fill out to understand the type of leader you are, as well as tools on how to delegate and a bunch of different things that'll help you in your leadership walk. And I also want to offer, because I know it's sort of taboo to do this nowadays, everything is go to social media, but I'm willing to speak with anyone who is curious about what are the next steps to transform their toxic company culture. And I'm willing to get on the phone with you. So if you go to bit.ly/culture clarity, you can schedule a free call with me, a free clarity call, and we can get clear on what's going on with your team and how you can progress on social media at BAProInc. And I look forward to connecting with you guys.
Yeah, you also have a, don't you have a podcast?
My podcast, absolutely.
Talk about that.
I do have a podcast that is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. It's called Culture Building Like a Pro. And it's basically a bunch of simple, tactical things that you can do, quick tips to make employee engagement and company culture simple. It's not complicated, but we complicate it. So the podcast is just designed to help those in leadership, management, and small business owners be able to build their company culture like a pro, even if you don't have the time.
And we all can use a little more time. But you know what? You have to take the time to invest in you.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so important to take the time to invest in you.
Yes.
So tell them how important that is.
Investing in yourself is extremely important because, number one, especially if you're in a management or a leadership role, you're not just working for yourself. You're not just doing the work for you. There are other people who are looking to you. They're looking for a level of influence and impact from you. And it's important for you to take initiative in developing yourself in those areas so that you can lead people the right direction. The last thing any of us want to do is to be known as, oh, I had this boss one time and she was horrible or he was terrible. No one wants to be remembered that way. So take it upon yourself to ensure that you're being remembered for influencing and impacting people's lives so that they can go forward in their career and creating other leaders just like you did with them.
Awesome. That's amazing. You have been tuning in to Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Pastor Teresa McCurry, also known as Pastor T. And here at Christian Networking Entrepreneurs, we help emerging entrepreneurs, small business, and community leaders get the resources, strategies, and connections needed to grow their business. Not just grow your business, but grow as a person, personal development and business development. And remember, if you don't network, you don't work. Thank you for tuning in to Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, Dionna, for being my guest today. I really, really appreciate that. So look at the links below. Connect with her. Give her a call as it relates to the 30-minute clarity call. It'll be the best 30 minutes that you use. Get the resources that she have available for us here at Christian Networking Entrepreneurs. Remember the code CNE 15. CNE 15. Thank you for tuning in. My time is up, and I want to thank you for yours. Have a great day. Bye-bye.